What's up, everyone? So we are back with another video. Really haven't done anything with the car since the test day that you just seen. That was around the 4th of July, and basically I put the car in the front garage because Dad brought the blue truck down here. We towed the car with that when we went out there, and it just had a little bit of a power steering leak, and so he was just tidying up all that stuff. So the car's been sitting up front for the last couple weeks, but now it's time to get her back in here. Get to work. Got a couple things to change. Good friend of mine, Rustin from Riverside Racecraft, he has a theory that my slow 60 foots there's something wrong in the cooling system, basically, like my cooler's plugged or it doesn't flow enough or just something along those lines, or it's in the dump valve setup. So basically I'm going to eliminate the dump valve and I'm going to put this thing in here. This is a pressure relief valve, and it's a 60 PSI one, and I'll just dump that into the pan. So once it makes 60 PSI of charge pressure, I'll just boop right back in the pan. Done deal. No, simple as that. Don't open it, don't close it, that's all it'll do. And then as you've seen, that stator was way off. It's just really tight, which I expected it to be, but I just wanted to make a change, something drastic to see if it would 60 foot again like it used to, because it did 60 foot pretty good with the tight converter, but not with this one. I mean, we got a little closer, but it was just so tight it was not even manageable, and it still wasn't nearly as fast as it was with the one. But so Rustin told me that he would drink a beer out of his shoe if he was wrong, because he had seen something with this before where it was in the cooler or the dump valve setup or whatever it was. So I figured I was just going to eliminate the cooler and just try it, but I figured that this old crusty one as just it was time for an upgrade. That one's probably been on that car for 10 years or more, so I bought this big fancy one. This one's quite a bit beefier than that one. It should cool a heck of a lot better. It's got I think it's a double row, or I'm not even exactly sure what it is. I just looked up on Facebook what everyone was using, and this one was fair priced and I could get it pretty quick, so that was the one I went with. Just got to put some lines in it. I believe this one is an older style Diral cooler, or whatever, however you say that. But conveniently enough, they use the same pattern of bolts for mounting it. So I'm just going to use the rails off of this cooler, and it'll bolt right back up into the car. So that is super nice. And then I got to switch some transmission lines around and put that little pill in there. And then I did send out my PTC converter just for a second opinion. We've kind of been around the block here with different stators and different setups and different everything, and I just kind of wanted to try a different brand that was a little more spec'd out for this particular combination. So I don't think I'm going to have that one in time for Cache the Creek, but I won't pull the trans yet. I'll give it, Cache the Creek is in 5 days, so I'll wait until Thursday night or Friday. I don't work Fridays just because it's summertime and there's not a whole lot going on in the snowmobile world during the summer. So I'll probably pull that transmission out Thursday night or Friday morning, get the stator swapped, get everything going, fire it up, put it on the chip, make sure everything's good. As far as not having a dump valve goes, the stator was pretty loose, and I don't think it's going to be a problem not having the dump. It spooled up really nicely before, so I think that it should still spool up really nicely, but obviously time will tell. I was a little shocked that it spooled up so slow with the tight one in, because when I had it out on the street before I hurt the bearings, it seemed to light up pretty quick. But as far as I can see, there's nothing wrong in the engine, or there was nothing wrong in the transmission, unless my problem's just getting worse, or unless the transmission is going bad, or whatever. But time will tell. So we're going to put this thing in, and then get the stator swapped, and we'll see where we're at. That's kind of the plan. So I'm going to finish this up, and then we'll take a look at some transmission cooler lines. All right, so it has been a few minutes since that last clip that I showed you. What really stinks about all that is I was showing you how the rails, these are these old mounting rails that were used. So this cooler, this one here, the big one, is like an inch wider than the other one. So then I can't mount it the way that I had it mounted in the car, which I'll try to show you that. It's kind of tricky to see because the radiator's back there as well. But it's not the greatest thing in the whole world. it has had a lot of modifications over the years. And it was actually how I got the car, and then it had been modified once, and then I modified it. And then, yeah, that's just kind of how it is. But if I shine this up here, you can see there's this square tubing, and that's where it mounted to. There's bolts welded on there, and that's how the old transcooler was in. But those tubes do not, obviously being that they're cut to width, they do not fit on there anymore. Don't mind that plug. That is an extra shock travel sensor plug, in case I put a driver's side one. But with those rails being there, I don't have anywhere to bolt it to because the rails are only so wide and this one is wider. So my idea was, without taking the radiator out and doing all that, I made these rails. So there's the bolt pattern to go on to this transcooler, and then I just got to drill the holes. You can see the little spot there and then the little spot there, and that will go to the holes or the welded on bolts that are already in there. So then just the same way as this one was, you should be able to pop that thing in there, put the nuts on, done deal. Which that's kind of makes it easy that way, you know, especially with the radiator there, which I don't think it's going to stay there much longer, but at least got to get it up there so we can run it this year. I think that the car is going to head south for the winter time. I have a friend down south who we've been talking about doing some little fab work on this thing, which I think it's pretty due. So some of this trunk stuff, you know, I've modified it so many times and you just can't keep modifying it. Basically, it's got to start fresh. So I think we're going to start fresh this winter. I'm not totally sure yet. We got to talk some more about it, but I might end up doing that because I do have the LSX order or engine. It's being built currently over at TKM Performance in North Carolina. So that will be super awesome. And I think we'll end up going with twin turbos. And so then I'll change a whole bunch of stuff under the hood too. So we'll see though. Haven't really decided what I'm going to do. I just kind of want to get it to work this year with this particular engine combination. And then we'll try out some new stuff next year, or think about new stuff next year. But that is how I'm going to do these. So right now, all I got to do is drill 4 holes, deburr them up a little bit, bolt it all together, and pray to Lord that she slides right in. After that, we should all be good. The lines should reach. Everything's in the same spot, basically. And I already put the plug on it. These awesome DT connectors. Got this kit from Monkey Fab Garage. If you guys are looking for them, they are so easy. It took me like 2 minutes to put this pin on the other one over there. So that's pretty damn awesome. But yeah, I'm gonna keep plugging away and I'll update you as I get there. So there you have it, folks. It's kind of hard to see, but there's the trans cooler up in there. And you can see there are the little plates that I made to bolt it up back onto the original rails. You can kind of see the nut up under there where it goes to the original studs, but the transcooler setup is all good to go. All right, so it's a couple days later, and like I said, I had to do a stator change, and so we went ahead and pulled the transmission out. So there she is, sitting on the floor, or not really on the floor. I had to do some work to it, which I'll explain in a minute. But so we were having a little bit of metal in the oil appearing like thrust bearing, and I was having some higher charge pressures, which would make sense why it was thrust bearing. So I kind of started looking into things because I've done this high thrust or high charge pressure like on accident a few times, but I've never ever ran into so much material in the engine oil as I have been lately. So I kind of started thinking that maybe there was something with the pilot of the converter that was messing up the thrust. So let me crawl under here and show you kind of what we got going on. So let me get my light propped up good. So there. So there, you can see the flywheel of the motor. So this here is the bushing that goes on the end of the torque converter. And I do need this because the pilot on there just isn't quite long enough to make it into that center hole. But when this is in there, it's like all the way forward. I mean, it's probably got, you can see how tight that is. It's probably got 15 thousandths of clearance. In the back, there's plenty of clearance, like up in here in the middle diameter, like that's all fine going in. It's this outer diameter where my fingers are hitting right there where I'm pushing it ahead. So I think when this thing starts making some pressure, it can't truly flex at all because it just immediately into the crank. So I noticed that with the stator or with the whole torque converter in the car, and then now that I have the torque converter apart, I'm kind of put it up here with the back cover off to see exactly what this looked like, and it is so damn close. So I think that's where our problems have been coming from. So like with the first engine in the PTC, I didn't have to use one of these, so it wasn't an issue. That one had enough engagement. And then the second aluminum motor, the one that had pulled the threads out of the cylinder, out of the block, you know, for the cylinder head, that one, we had so many problems with that thing last year, you know, with the whole fuel pump debacle and all that good stuff. I never really ran it hard enough to like change the oil frequently like I have been this time. I mean, I still changed it obviously, but only had a couple runs here and there. I think I only had 9 passes on it after that happened, or maybe 12, like it wasn't a ton. So I'd never noticed anything too weird, but when I took the engine apart not too long ago to do some machining on it, I noticed that the thrust bearing looked like it had been worked. It wasn't wasted or anything, but it had been worked a little bit. So I kind of got to thinking, I'm like, well, that motor was working thrust bearings. And then this one, it didn't destroy it, but it was pretty bad. But then it, you know, it killed other bearings in there as well. But then, you know, first oil change on this one, you just see a little bit of material. And I'm like, what in the world? And so I just checked the end play. It's about 10, 11, which is a little bit over factory spec, but I'm going to send it anyway. Maybe that sounds dumb. Maybe it isn't dumb because it's only 3 thou over what the factory recommends. But I just don't see it. If I fix the issue, which I'm going to, we won't really work the thrust bearing anymore. We'll be like how we used to be. The original engine never had any thrust problems, and that bearing looked really nice. So that's kind of the plan here. So I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. Been talking with a few people about this, and they said it's okay if I go ahead and machine the pilot. So there isn't really a whole lot I can do. If I modify this thing, it's going to become very weak because there's just not a ton of material that can be removed on this little thing. But basically, with this all the way on here, the crank is right up to about there. So if I machine, say, 100 thousandths off of this thing, it's going to bump everything back 100 thou. And then also, you might not be able to see it, but you can see that gap in the inside of that. That is because this is square, and the inside of this thing has a big chamfer on it. So I think I'm going to take 100 to 125 thou off of this thing, and then I'm just going to put that bevel on there so this thing can seat all the way in. And right now I have about 475 thousandths of engagement into the back of the crank. So if I do something like that, I'll lose 150, 175, and that's still more than enough, and it gives it a little bit of breathing room. So I think that is the method to go here. And then, you know, I was saying I had a whole bunch of other problems, and you've seen that I got my new cooler installed. I also removed the dump valve, and I put this little 60 PSI pressure relief in there. So that hopefully should make that not go crazy. And then this is the looser stator, and the car did spool up really nice with this stator. So I don't think not having the dump is gonna be an issue. So we're gonna go ahead and give that a whirl, and yeah, but I'm gonna take you to work and we're gonna do some machining. Also, those plastic things I showed you in the last video for holding up hoses worked absolutely stellar right here. So that is super convenient. Just nice little hold this hose secure so it can't do any wobbling around or come loose or anything stupid. But yeah, I'm gonna go machine this thing and then come back and we'll switch the stators and put that thing back together.
All right, so we are ready to pick this thing up and do a little machining. I'm going to take an 1/8 inch off it, and then I'm going to put a nice chamfer right around this lip here. So first thing we're going to do, probe the top of the part, get your Z height. There you go. See, it's touching, feeling it out, and we got it. So set the Z. Now we just want to position this roughly in the center of this circle. And then we want to go out and make it probe around the outside so we find the center. There we go, now we're off. And it does it one more time now that it roughly knows where the middle is, just to make sure that it has it set properly. So all we're going to do on the OD is just put a nice chamfer on it, and then we're just going to mill 1/8 of an inch right off the top of it, and we should be good. Hopefully our machine's got enough travel. It sure looked like it did when I tried it out earlier, but obviously you never know. Last touch here, and then we're good. Kaboom! 1.704 diameter. Now we bring up our end mill. .5/8 aluminum cutter. And just like that, we're ready to cut. I'm just gonna be real nice and I'll just hand wheel this operation since, as you can see, my holding isn't awesome. And this end mill's had a rough life. So I don't know exactly how sharp it is, but we'll try this and we'll see just how bad it sounds. Pretty dang chattery. And not really chattery, vibrating. This is why we do it by hand.
machine doesn't get ran a whole lot, so I don't have a ton of tools in it. But this one will do the job. That's so much better. Now I honestly feel comfortable just machining it. Yep, this one sounds so good, we're gonna machine it with a program. We'll try that. All right, so there you've seen me machining this thing, and I got it home and got it back together. And I actually test fitted a little bit, and it's pretty dang nice. Got about 160 thousandths of clearance, which is a lot better than 0. So that should be good. I just, may seem kind of dumb, but I know these things with heat and they grow. So you wonder if it's growing and it can't grow forward at all, you know, with there being no room, that it's just gonna push it back into the transmission more. So maybe that could be part of the problem. I mean, it could just be something as weird as that. So now everything has some space to move and to grow and to have some room with heat, and I should be away from thrust pressure issues. So I think we're going to be in pretty good shape. Hopefully, maybe that was the problem this whole time. I mean, we'll find out. I've never noticed that before, but I did now, and I'm gonna put her back in, and hopefully this thing rips again. I would love that. So I'm gonna fill this thing with oil and then probably call it a night, and then I'll hit it again in the morning and get some shit done. Put this converter in, put the transmission back in, fire it up, give it a shot. I mean, it's all you can do. So I'll see you in the morning. So transmission is back in. I just got to do the converter bolts, but since we've basically been just chasing our tail forever, I wanted to make sure that the spacing was proper. So I used a bunch of, I think they're letter drill bits. They're in this drawer here. Yes. These guys. Number drill bits, actually. So I ended up checking it with a number 19 drill, which is a 166 diameter. And I measured it, and it actually was about 164. And that was extremely tight between the flex plate and the torque converter. So that means my converter spacing is good with no shims. I've never had to run shims in this. So that's all good there. And I just found a thing online, and I will post a clip of it in right here, and you can read it. But now that you've seen that, mine before was like 10 or 15 thou. And according to Hutch, which if you ever read the forums or anything on transmission stuff, Hutch is kind of the man. you need at least 80 thousandths clearance between the pilot spacer and the back of the crankshaft. Otherwise, it will not allow the flex plate and converter to move properly. Was that the problem? I have zero idea. It is the thrust bearing issue. I mean, that was that problem for sure. Is it the 60-foot problem? We'll find out. So now I have about 160, as I said last night, and that should be good. So we should have plenty of room for the flex plate to move, for the converter to do its thing. I mean, you think if it can't move at all, it's gonna stay, you know, it's gonna stay in the pump a lot, and I don't know what that all does to everything, but maybe it fucks with it. I have no clue. But I'm gonna put bolts in, and we're gonna find out this weekend, so kind of stoked. But gotta fill this thing up with transmission fluid. All the lines are on, sensors are plugged in. Everything should be good. And then we can fire it up. Maybe put it on the chip, see what it does. All right, we are all ready. Converter's in, bolts are in, all the fittings are tight. Added some fluid to it. Time to fire it up. All right, start up time. All right, so you seen there, fired it up and did a spool test, took it out on the road. Sorry I didn't film any of it. The road out here, like the main road, is all closed up. So it seems like everyone's been detouring through the street here, and it's just very hard to not have a million people around when you're trying to do something. But went ahead, spooled it up about 4,400 RPMs. It made 11.5, 11.7, so just pretty much what it did before, and it did all that in about 4 seconds. Converter charge pressure was holding right about 70 PSI. It wouldn't go any higher, so we should be all good to go. I mean, everything seems like it's pretty happy. It's spooled up plenty fast. RPMs were good. I mean, if I get knocked out, you know, first round or whatever, I'll just start trying different stuff with it, basically. I mean, just to rule out every possible factor. Lower RPM, higher RPM. I mean, we've changed a lot, so it'll be interesting to see. Actually, we really haven't. I mean, we've just solved a few mysteries, maybe is the best way to put it. But seems like the car's happy, so I think we should have a good time. I really hope that some of the stuff we found fixes it. I mean, that would just be the coolest thing in the whole world since it's just been forever. But yeah, time will tell. So car seems to be all good. I just put it back up in the air a little bit just so I can make sure nothing's leaking around the transmission, since we had all that stuff torn apart. The cooler worked good. I put it on the chip 3 times, pretty much a minute apart, and it got to 130 degrees. So no complaints at all about that. That's a big cooler. It really should do a pretty good job. But hope you enjoyed this video. Racing tomorrow, Cache at the Creek. I'll try to get, hopefully you see this video and it's Friday night by the time that it gets posted. But sometimes download speeds take forever, so who knows. But I'll try to get this out tonight, so you'll see it the day before the race or the day of the race. And then I will be up north all week next week, so maybe I'll do some filming on skiing and some cool stuff like that. But yeah, so bad service up there too. So once we get home from Cache at the Creek, I gotta edit all the film and try to get it at least uploaded to YouTube, so I don't have to try to download it when we're in the crappy service zone. But yeah, that's always a battle. But I appreciate you guys watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Maybe you learned some things that I learned as well, like the converter spacing. So that's a pretty cool thing. Converter spacing, by that I mean like pilot spacing. So that's kind of a big deal. I don't want to hurt thrust bearings, and ever since we swapped to this current converter setup, it seems like everything's been working thrust bearings. So that would be the reason why, and hopefully everything's all good now. So we'll see y'all at Cache at the Creek.